Maya Johnson stood in front of her bedroom mirror, the warm glow of the late afternoon sun spilling through the window, casting a golden hue over her reflection. Her heart raced with excitement as she adjusted the straps of the stunning dress that her late mother had crafted. The fabric, a deep emerald green, hugged her curves perfectly and shimmered with each subtle movement. It felt like a piece of her mother was wrapped around her, a connection that made the anticipation swell within her. But it was more than just the dress. It was the dream of stepping into the elite social circles of New York City that truly exhilarated her. "Tonight is the night," she whispered to herself, a smile breaking across her face. She envisioned the mingling of high-profile guests, the clinking of glasses, and the laughter that would fill the air. "I will be seen. I will be heard." With each thought, her resolve strengthened. She had worked hard to carve a niche for herself as an emerging artist, and tonight was her chance to showcase her talent and ambition to the world. As she applied her makeup, her phone buzzed with a message from her best friend, Zoe. "Can't wait to see you tonight. You're going to slay." Maya chuckled, feeling a rush of affection for her friend. Zoe had always been her biggest cheerleader, encouraging her to chase her dreams even when self-doubt crept in. Maya quickly typed back, "Thanks. You know I will. Can't wait to celebrate." Once she was satisfied with her appearance, Maya took a deep breath and grabbed her clutch. "This is it," she said aloud, gathering her thoughts. She stepped out of her apartment and into the bustling streets of Manhattan, the city alive with energy. The tantalizing scent of street food, mixed with the distant sound of music, created a vibrant atmosphere that invigorated her spirit. Arriving at the lavish venue, an opulent building adorned with twinkling lights, Maya felt a thrill of anticipation wash over her. However, as she approached the entrance, her heart sank when she noticed the imposing figure of the bouncer, a broad-shouldered man with a stern expression. He scanned the crowd with a watchful eye, and Maya felt a twinge of anxiety. "Invitation only," he barked as Maya approached, his tone dismissive. "I'm Maya Johnson," she replied confidently, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. "I'm on the guest list." The bouncer raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "You sure about that? You don't look like the type who gets invited to these things." Maya's stomach twisted with disbelief. "Excuse me? I'm here with my dress designed by my mother, and I am an artist. I've been looking forward to this night for so long." He smirked, crossing his arms over his chest. "Doesn't matter. You need an invitation to enter. No exceptions." Maya felt the weight of rejection settle over her like a heavy cloak. She tightened her grip on her clutch, her dreams crumbling in that moment. "You can't be serious," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "All I want is a chance to prove myself." "You should have thought of that before," the bouncer replied coldly, turning his attention to the next guest in line. With a heavy heart, Maya stepped back, feeling the laughter and chatter of the party echoing from inside, taunting her. As she walked away, her mind spun with a mix of anger and disappointment. Suddenly, snippets of conversation floated toward her, piercing through the veil of her despair. "Did you see the new art exhibit?" one woman exclaimed, her voice dripping with superficiality. "I hear it's all about diversity. How trendy." Maya felt a surge of determination rise within her. These people, ensconced in their privilege, had no idea of the struggles faced by those outside their bubble. She clenched her fists, her resolve solidifying. "I will not be silenced," she muttered to herself, the fire of ambition reigniting in her chest. "They will see me, and they will understand my worth." With her head held high, Maya turned on her heel and walked away from the venue, the echoes of shallow conversations fueling her desire to confront the very prejudices that had turned her away. She would find a way to show them that her dreams were just as valid, that her talent deserved recognition. The night was far from over, and she was determined to claim her place in the world, no matter the obstacles. Maya stood in her small, sunlit apartment, the remnants of her earlier disappointment still clinging to her like a heavy cloak. Zoe burst through the door, her vibrant personality filling the room with energy. "Maya, you won't believe the gossip I just heard. Apparently, Julian's been bragging about how exclusive this party is." He thinks he owns the whole city, Zoe exclaimed, her voice ringing with indignation. Maya rolled her eyes, a small smile creeping on her lips despite the weight in her chest. Yeah, well, he does seem to think he can decide who gets to be part of his little world. Zoe crossed her arms, her brows furrowing in determination. We can't let him get away with this. You deserve to be there, not just as a guest, but as someone who belongs. Let's get back in there and show them who you really are. Maya chuckled, a flicker of excitement igniting within her. Okay, so what do you have in mind? Zoe paced the room, her mind racing. We'll make fake invitations. It's a little risky, but what's the worst that can happen? They deny you again? No, we'll be ready this time. Maya's heart raced at the thought. The idea of confronting the elite in their own domain thrilled her. But how do we even create them? I don't want to get caught. We'll just need some creativity and determination, Zoe replied, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I'll grab my laptop. We can whip up something that looks official. We could even use a fancy logo, something to make it seem legit. As they gathered supplies, the laughter between them grew, momentarily banishing the frustration that had weighed so heavily on Maya. They rummaged through the drawers, pulling out glitter pens, colored paper, and an old printer. This is going to be epic. Just imagine walking right past that bouncer and into the party like we own the place, Zoe said, her enthusiasm infectious. Maya felt a rush of adrenaline. Okay, let's do it. I'm ready to step into that world and show them what they've been missing. They spent the next hour crafting their invitations, Zoe taking the lead on the design while Maya contributed ideas. What if we named the event something posh like a night of art and elegance? Maya suggested, her mind racing with possibilities. Zoe nodded vigorously. Perfect. And we'll put a dress code. Formal attire required. That'll make it sound even more exclusive. As they continued their project, laughter bubbled between them, breaking the tension that had enveloped Maya since the earlier rejection. They marveled at the absurdity of their plan, the thrill of rebellion igniting a spark in Maya's heart. Just as they finished printing the invitations, Maya's phone buzzed on the table, startling them both. She glanced at the screen and saw her mentor's name illuminated. With a deep breath, she answered the call. Hi, Mr. Thompson. It's good to hear from you. Hello, Maya. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important, he replied, his voice warm yet authoritative. I just wanted to check in. I heard about the gala you were planning to attend. How did it go? Maya hesitated, the earlier disappointment flooding back. Well, I didn't get in. I was turned away at the door because of, well, you know how these things go. There was a pause on the other end, and she could almost hear him processing her words. Maya, I want you to remember something vital. The world can be harsh, but you must stay true to yourself. Your worth is not defined by others' perceptions or their elitist barriers. Maya felt a wave of emotions wash over her. I know, but it's hard not to feel defeated, especially when you've worked so hard to be recognized for your talent. Defeat is only a moment, Maya. It's how you respond that truly matters. If you want to break through those barriers, find your voice. Use this experience to fuel your passion. You are talented, and you deserve to be seen and heard. His words resonated deep within her, igniting a fire she hadn't realized she still had. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I appreciate your guidance. I'm going to find a way to turn this around. Good. I believe in you, he said before hanging up. Maya put her phone down, her heart racing. She looked at Zoe, who was watching her with a mix of curiosity and excitement. What did he say? Maya smiled, the resolve in her voice evident. He reminded me to stay true to myself. And you know what? We're going to show them who we are. With a renewed sense of purpose, they finalized their plans, ready to take on the night and the challenges it would bring. Maya Johnson adjusted her mask as she and Zoe stepped into the lavish ballroom, the soft glow of chandeliers illuminating the sea of well-dressed guests. They had managed to blend into the crowd, both wearing outfits that exuded confidence and sophistication, albeit with a hint of rebellion. Maya's heart raced with a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was it, the moment she had imagined since being turned away at the door. Stay close, Zoe whispered, her eyes scanning the room. We need to stick together and act like we belong here. Maya nodded, her resolve strengthening. She could feel the weight of her mother's legacy in the fabric of her dress, a reminder that she was more than just an outsider. She was a force to be reckoned with. As they moved through the throng of guests, Maya caught snippets of conversations, laughter ringing in her ears, a stark contrast to the rejection she had felt earlier that evening. "Did you see the new exhibit at the gallery?" A woman in a sparkling gown remarked, her voice dripping with elitism. "Of course, but I can't believe they let anyone in without an invitation," a man scoffed, his tone laced with disdain. Maya clenched her fists, her determination hardening. She would show them that she was not just an anyone. Drawing a deep breath, she approached a small group gathered around a table. Their conversation centered on the latest trends in art. "Excuse me," Maya interjected, her voice steady. "I couldn't help but overhear. Are you discussing the new artists featured at the gallery?" The group turned to her, surprise flickering across their faces. Zoe gave her an encouraging nod from the sidelines. "Ah, yes. We were just talking about the brilliance of contemporary art," one woman replied, her tone warming slightly. "Do you follow any particular artists?" Maya seized the opportunity. "Absolutely. I'm particularly inspired by artists who challenge societal norms and push boundaries. Have any of you heard of the new installation by Kofi Adoma? His work speaks volumes about identity and belonging." The group exchanged glances, intrigued. Maya felt a spark of confidence ignite within her. She was navigating this space, engaging in meaningful dialogue, and slowly, she could see the gears turning in their minds. "That's a bold choice," the man from earlier said, his previous skepticism fading. "I must admit, I hadn't considered his perspective before. It's refreshing." Maya smiled, encouraged by their response. "Art is a reflection of our experiences, isn't it? It can be a powerful tool for change." As she continued to share her insights, she could feel the atmosphere shifting. The initial wariness of her presence began to dissolve, replaced by curiosity. Zoe watched from a distance, pride swelling in her chest as she witnessed her friend effortlessly commanding the attention of the crowd. But the moment of triumph was abruptly shattered when Julian, the event's organizer, strode over, his sharp gaze locking onto Maya. She felt her heart drop. "Ah, the imposter graces us with her presence," he declared, his voice slicing through the chatter like a knife. The laughter in the room turned to whispers, and Maya's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" one of the guests asked, looking confused. "Don't be fooled," Julian sneered. "She doesn't belong here. Just look at her attire. She's nothing but a wannabe trying to crash our party." Maya's pulse quickened. "I'm not crashing anything," she retorted, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "I'm here to engage in a conversation about art and identity, just like everyone else." Julian smirked, relishing the crowd's attention. "Oh, please. You think you can just waltz in here and pretend to be one of us? Let's be real. You're not part of this world." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, some eyes darting between Julian and Maya, while others glinted with curiosity. She could feel the weight of their prejudice pressing down on her, but she refused to crumble. "I may not fit your narrow definition of belonging," Maya said, her voice rising above the murmurs, "but my passion for art and my voice matter just as much as anyone else's here. Isn't that what this event should be about?" The tension in the room thickened, and for a moment, Maya felt as if she were standing on the precipice of change. Would they take a step back and question their own biases, or would they succumb to Julian's taunts? She held her breath, waiting for the crowd to react. Maya stood in the center of the lavish ballroom, her heart racing as she faced Julian, the man who had publicly humiliated her just moments ago. The air was thick with tension, the laughter and clinking of glasses around them fading into a dull murmur. She could feel the eyes of the crowd upon her, some filled with curiosity, others with disdain. "Do you even know who I am?" Julian sneered, his arms crossed defiantly over his tailored suit. "This isn't a place for people like you." The word struck Maya like a slap. She inhaled deeply, drawing on the strength she had cultivated over the years. "And what do you mean by people like me?" Her voice was steady, challenging. "Is it because of my skin color? Or because I don't fit your narrow definition of what someone should look like to be here?" Julian rolled his eyes, dismissive. Look, the elite have worked hard to maintain their status. It's not about skin color. It's about connections, pedigree, and the right opportunities. He gestured around the room, indicating the well-dressed guests laughing and sipping champagne. These people have earned their place here. Maya took a step closer, her heart pounding. You think privilege is about earning a place? For many of us, it's about simply being allowed to step through the door. Her voice cracked slightly, but she quickly regained her composure. I've spent years crafting my art and my vision, hoping to break into a world that has always felt closed to me. I'm not here to take anyone's place. I'm here to carve out my own. The audience began to shift, some leaning in, intrigued by her passionate plea. A few faces softened, their expressions reflecting a flicker of empathy. Maya pressed on, fueled by their response. I grew up in a neighborhood where dreams often went to die. My mother worked tirelessly to create beauty and art that spoke to our experiences, yet she was never welcomed in spaces like this. I want to change that. I want to create a world where everyone's story matters, where everyone feels they belong. Julian scoffed, trying to regain control. And how do you expect to do that? By crashing parties and making a scene? This is not how you get respect in this world. But this is how I get seen, Maya countered, her voice rising slightly. How can you expect change to happen if we all sit quietly in our corners, afraid to speak up? I'm not asking for your approval. I'm demanding that you recognize the value of diversity, of different perspectives. As her words hung in the air, several guests began to murmur amongst themselves. She has a point, one woman whispered to her companion. Maybe we need to rethink what we consider elite. Maya noticed the shift, the glimmers of understanding in their eyes. I know this isn't easy for you to hear, she continued, her gaze never leaving Julian's. But it's time we confront our biases, to acknowledge the walls we've built around ourselves. The truth is, we all have struggles. We all have stories that define us, and it's those stories that should be celebrated, not hidden away. Julian's expression hardened, but a few guests began to nod, their expressions shifting from skepticism to contemplation. The tension in the room began to wane, giving way to a fragile sense of unity among those who were beginning to see beyond their initial prejudices. I don't care if I'm not one of the right people, Maya declared, her voice strong and unwavering. What I care about is creating spaces where all voices are heard, where we can come together and celebrate our differences rather than hide behind our privilege. Suddenly, a young man stepped forward, his brow furrowed with thought. Julian, have you ever considered how many talented individuals you overlook simply because they don't fit your image of success? What if we're missing out on something extraordinary? A ripple of agreement spread through the crowd, and Maya felt a spark of hope igniting within her. For the first time that night, she could sense a shift, an openness that had been absent just moments before. Julian's demeanor faltered, but he quickly recovered, unwilling to let go of his grip on the crowd. This isn't how it works. You can't just waltz in here and expect everyone to change their minds. This is a prestigious event. Maya raised her chin defiantly. Perhaps it's time for prestigious events to evolve. Are you not tired of the same faces, the same stories? What if we could create something beautiful together, a new narrative that includes everyone? As she spoke, a few guests began to move closer, drawn by her passion. They exchanged glances, some whispering to one another. Maya could feel the tide turning, the moment of unity blossoming. The night was far from over, but perhaps, just perhaps, they were beginning to see the world through a different lens. As the atmosphere in the lavishly decorated ballroom grew increasingly charged, the tension was palpable. The once lively chatter transformed into heated debates as guests began to voice their opinions on privilege and worth. Maya stood at the center of it all, her heart racing, but her resolve unwavering. The air was thick with a mixture of disbelief and defiance, as she had unwittingly ignited a firestorm of introspection among the elite. I can't believe she had the audacity to show up here. A woman in a sequin gown scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. She doesn't belong in our world. Maya clenched her fists, fighting the urge to respond with anger. Instead, she took a deep breath and stepped forward. What is it that makes someone belong? Is it the designer label they wear or the color of their skin? Her voice rang out, startling several guests into silence. I'm not just an outsider. I'm a person with dreams, just like all of you. In that moment, a man dressed in an expensive tailored suit chimed in. You have to admit, though, there are standards we have to maintain. People work hard to get to where they are. His tone was condescending, yet there was a hint of curiosity beneath his bravado. Standards? Maya echoed, her eyes narrowing. You mean the unwritten rules that keep people like me out? I've worked just as hard, if not harder, to get to this point. My mother poured her heart and soul into her craft, and I've spent years trying to honor that legacy. But that doesn't matter to you, does it? You only see the color of my skin. As the guests listened, a few began to shift uncomfortably, their expressions revealing the cracks in their polished facades. A woman with striking red lipstick spoke up, her voice trembling. I once was rejected from a gallery show because the curator thought my work was too experimental. I never showed my art again, convinced I wasn't good enough. Maya's heart swelled with empathy at the unexpected vulnerability. See? We all have stories. We all have struggles that define us, she urged, glancing around the room. What if we take a moment to share our experiences instead of judging one another? Let's turn this into a dialogue, not a battle. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd as some guests nodded. Maybe a game, suggested a tall man with glasses, his brows furrowed in thought. We could each share a moment when we felt out of place or judged unfairly. Maya beamed at the idea. Exactly. Let's break down these barriers and connect. I'll start. She took a step closer to the nearest table, her heart pounding with both excitement and trepidation. I remember the first time I tried on my mother's designs. I was so proud, but when I wore them to school, I was mocked for trying to be fancy. It was a painful reminder that not everyone appreciates the beauty and diversity. As Maya spoke, guests began to open up, sharing their own stories of rejection and hardship. Laughter mingled with tears as they recounted experiences that had once felt isolating. Maya felt a sense of unity forming, a fragile bridge being built among them. But just as the atmosphere shifted toward understanding, Julian stormed forward, his face flushed with anger. Enough of this nonsense. This isn't a therapy session. It's a gala. We cannot allow this imposter to derail the event. His voice echoed through the hall, and the guests fell silent. The warmth of connection abruptly snuffed out. Maya's heart sank as she watched the hope in their eyes dim. Julian, wait. No, he barked, cutting her off. You think you can come in here and change everything with your sob stories? This is about exclusivity and status. You don't belong here. Maya felt a surge of frustration rise within her. You're right. I don't belong in a place that values status over humanity. But maybe that's the problem. We should be challenging these norms, not upholding them. Julian's eyes flashed with irritation, but the room remained silent, the weight of Maya's words hanging heavily in the air. A few guests exchanged glances, their expressions betraying a newfound awareness. As Julian turned to regain control of the event, Maya's impact lingered, stirring something deep within the crowd. The seeds of change had been sown, and though the game had been cut short, the conversations ignited in that moment would not easily be extinguished. As the tension in the room thickened, Maya took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She had spent so long trying to fit into a world that had consistently rejected her, and now, standing in the midst of the elite, she felt a surge of power coursing through her veins. The whispers and murmurs of disbelief from the crowd only fueled her resolve. With her chin held high, she stepped forward, commanding the attention of the guests who had just moments ago derided her very existence. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice steady, cutting through the cacophony of surprise. I have something to reveal. The room fell silent, all eyes fixated on her. I am Maya Johnson, and this is my party. Gasps echoed around the room as the revelation sank in. Julian's face turned pale, and he stumbled backward, as if the ground beneath him had shifted. What? That can't be. This is absurd. His voice cracked, betraying his disbelief. Maya continued, her confidence unwavering. I inherited this venue from my mother, a renowned designer and a woman who fought tirelessly for recognition in this industry. It belongs to me, just as much as it ever belonged to anyone else. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. I am not an imposter. I am the host. And I'm here to challenge the very notion of what it means to belong. The guests exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of confusion and realization. Maya's best friend Zoe stood at the edge of the crowd, her eyes wide with pride and disbelief. She had always known Maya was destined for greatness, but this moment felt monumental. Are you saying you've been playing us all along? One of the guests, a sharply dressed woman with a diamond necklace that sparkled in the light, asked incredulously. I'm saying that your concept of worth is flawed, Maya replied, her voice rising with fervor. You've judged me based on my appearance, my race, and your preconceived notions of who should be here. But I am here, and I deserve to be. The atmosphere shifted, the tension morphing into a mixture of discomfort and curiosity. Julian, desperate to regain control, stepped forward, attempting to dismiss her. You're just an anomaly. This is not how things are done. Maya shook her head, undeterred. And that's precisely the problem, Julian. For too long, the how things are done has excluded people like me. You're so wrapped up in your elitist ideals that you can't even see the privilege you wield. The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, while others looked to Julian for guidance. What do you want from us? One man finally asked, his tone softer, more inquisitive. I want you to reflect, Maya replied, her voice steady. I want you to confront your biases, to acknowledge your privilege, and to understand that true acceptance comes from recognizing the value in diversity. This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. It's about changing the narrative. Julian's bravado crumbled further as he realized the implications of her words. The guests who had once rallied behind him began to question their blind allegiance. Maybe we've been wrong. Another woman spoke up, her voice trembling as she glanced around at her peers. Maybe we need to listen more. Maya seized the moment, stepping further into the light. I propose an initiative, an ongoing conversation that promotes diversity and inclusion in the art world and beyond. We need to create spaces where everyone feels welcome, where stories like mine are celebrated rather than shunned. The guests seemed to lean into her vision, and for the first time that evening, she felt a sense of hope. Julian, you've lost your grip on this event. It's time for you to step aside, she declared, her gaze unwavering. The crowd murmured in agreement, a wave of support surging through them. I can't just leave, Julian stammered, but it was clear that he had lost. The very foundation of his authority had been shaken. As the guests rallied behind Maya, the air filled with a sense of possibility. She had emerged not just as a participant in the world of art, but as a catalyst for change. In that moment, she became a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of standing firm in one's truth. The laughter and stories that flowed from her initiative would serve as a reminder that authenticity and diversity were not just acceptable, they were essential.